I haven't videoed the progress I've made on the transmission. You know, I did video disassembling it. I was gonna just set up a time lapse assembling it, which is, I think, it's been a while since I disassembled it. I think that's what I did for the disassembly, was just a time lapse with some highlights. Problem is, I've got the transmission here, I've got my new parts there, got the old parts there, I've got the press there, and my parts washer there. And I'm in a constant, you know, from here to parts to press to this table to get the old parts over to the parts washer to wash stuff. I found I was just moving all over the place, and so it was kind of hard to do a time lapse of that, you know, because I need to set the camera somewhere. So we've got low reverse done. It goes together smoothly. I'm not an expert on these. I'll put a video link in the description of the video I watched to do this. I'll put links in the description of the book I'm using, and I'll go ahead and put the parts. The parts really were the thing I struggled with. I could find plenty of information on rebuilding it, but what I couldn't find was information on what were the best parts to get, and it took a lot of digging to find, you know, what I felt like was a good rebuild kit. So I'll put a link to the rebuild kit. I bought new bushings with it, or the kit came with new bushings. A couple upgrades I'm doing. I'll put a link to the I don't remember the name of there's a site. It's a shift improving. They have some articles on, or an article, a page on improving the shift quality of the 4L60E. Sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and do those. One of them is this line pressure booster. This is I think it's 0.5 over or something like that. So we've got that. I think they recommend drilling some holes out in the separator plate. My separator plate, when I started looking at it, and this is very common, I don't know if you can see, better on this side. See where the check balls right up against, see how the plate's kind of damaged right there. You can repair these, but what I opted to do, I started looking into repair kits, and I think this was like $19. This is an upgraded separator plate. So I just bought an upgraded separator plate. It's from sorry. It's from Transgo. And they've upgraded some of the holes. What you want to do is lay this over your old plate, check both sides, make sure there's no extra holes in this one and no missing holes. I did that. There was one hole, this one right here is not in that one, so I need to look and see what that is. It may not be needed, but that's the only hole that's not there. Some of these holes are larger. In that page I'm talking about, they mentioned drilling some of these holes out larger. So what I'll probably do is go by that guide and find a bit that, wherever they say to drill this out, find a bit that fits in the hole. They say, forget the percentage, they say to go larger, but what we'll do is find whatever fits, what bit fits in here, and we'll check the size of the hole over there. And if that plate is not whatever percentage they recommend upgrading, then we might drill this plate out. So the other thing I did was, let me turn the light on. I drilled, so this is for fourth gear. I tapped this hole right here and put a set screw in with red Loctite. So that blocks off that hole, and that will give us a firmer fourth gear shift, with my understanding. And we still put the piston and everything in here, but we plug up that hole. So we'll see what it does. The book, or the page I was looking at, said to do that, plus the transmission friend that I have that he cleaned the case for me, nice and clean. He's got a machine. I don't know if it does hot water or what, but I think it does. I think it's like a steam cleaner type deal. But he cleaned the case for me, and I got my converter through him. He can get a better deal. He said to do that as well, and he recommended that line pressure booster kit as well. He said that's two things that really help out. And I did order the Beast sunshell. And we're going to put that in here. What else did I upgrade? Of course, I ordered a really good clutches. These are high energy frictions. Just, a lot of improvements of stuff like that. Did not order any shift solenoids. Mine were working, so we'll just clean those up, reuse them. My wiring kit, or wiring loom harness inside the transmission, was in good shape, so we're going to reuse it. Got the molded pistons with my kit, and I guess that's it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I ordered. Yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, going through using this book to rebuild it. The other thing that's very helpful is on my laptop over there. I've pulled every step of the way. I go to install something. I take a look at the exploded diagram of the transmission. So it shows every piece. Let's see. Yeah. So let me turn this light off now. There. Gets rid of the glare. So as I'm putting this together, I'm double checking as I go. So, here was our first step, basically. Went through, I made sure, I can kind of see what the parts are. We got all our clutches, a little bearing, planetary bearing. There's a little snap ring that holds that thing together. Got your anti-clunk spring right there, and then your one-way clutch deal there, snap ring. So that's where we are. So now I'm at the step of doing the sunshell and the sun gear, and so and my sunshell came with a new there's a little spacer or whatever that is, came with one of those. And I've already pressed my bushings in the sun gear, so that's what that is right there, a little bushing, and that's like a little snap ring that holds it all together. And then we've got another little, I guess that's I want to call it a spacer, but it's more, maybe a shim or a, yeah, kind of a bushing, whatever you call it. And that's probably another snap ring. It's hard to tell. I'll have to look. I've got everything laid out on the bench like it came out. So when I'm ready for like the shell, I've got all these pieces laid out how they came out. And so I just grabbed that and I'm like, okay, of course I'm not reusing my old shell, but I've got all these pieces laid out like they came out. And that's why I opted to, I set up a new table to put it back together, because I didn't want to disturb all these pieces because they're laid out. I laid them out like they came out. Some of it I've disturbed a little bit because I took the pieces and put new bushings in them and kind of laid them out in a clean spot, because I cleaned them and then put the new bushings and put it back. And then what I'm doing is I'm washing them in my parts washer. Then I come back over here and I spray them down with brake cleaner. So just kind of just to make sure, you know, I'm not getting contaminants in my parts washer, because there was a lot of metal shavings in this transmission. So I want to make sure that as I'm putting it back together, I know there's metal shavings now in my parts washer. I mean, there's no getting around that really, unless I changed out the parts washing fluid after every part I washed. So I do have a filter on it, so, and I'm not putting the parts down in the fluid. You know, I'm using the pump to pump it and, you know, rinse the parts. But, you know, it is possible that, you know, there could be some metal contaminants that get through my filter, go through the pump, and get on the parts I'm cleaning. So just to avoid, you know, any possibility of contaminants, after I'm done washing it there, I come back here and I spray it. I clean it with brake cleaner. So I get this stuff at the dollar store. It's $1.25 a can. And I bought like 10 cans. So cheap insurance in my book, and just to make sure this thing stays clean. So I'm going to continue on. You know, like I said, I'll put a link in the description of all this stuff. You know, like I said, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to try to do a how-to on this. I'm just putting it back together using other resources, you know, using the book, using, I think the guy's name's Hiram, using his video. So I'll put a link to all this stuff. If you plan on tackling this yourself, you know, these are resources that helped me. So that's going to be it, I think, for the reassembly, unless I see anything else that, you know, I just want to point out. Yeah, that's another reason I'm not doing a lot of videos. I've got this cold and a cough, so my voice isn't the greatest, and I keep coughing. So I'm going to continue on and get this thing done, and I'll let y'all check the description for any of the parts I use, and hopefully that helps you out. So thanks for watching. Alright, so figured I would show y'all something. Like I said, when I've done these before for compressing the springs on the 350, I use these, and I use these with some spacers, I think, if I remember right, to get this thing apart. What I found worked easier to put this thing back together was these. And this right here actually would work better. This one, I think it was already cracked, but it was breaking. I think I have 2 of these somewhere. I only find 1 of them, but 2 of those would work really well. And I use some sockets as spacers because you need more space there. And just use that to push the spring down so you can get the clamp on, or the stamp ring on. So we got this done. You know, you don't, my point in showing this is, you know, you don't have to buy the special press to do it. Hold I bet I could have made that with a puller that I've got in my normal press, but this actually worked pretty good. And then I've just got this vise C-clamped to this table that I'm using to assemble, and then I've got soft jaws on it holding it in. That makes it so much easier just to hold this thing in place. And these molded pistons are really nice. You know, you don't have to, they go in a lot easier than lip seals. So yeah, just figured I'd show you all that. Like I said, these clamps work great. If you really wanted to get fancy, you could make a longer bolt for this, and that would then you wouldn't have to use a socket as a spacer. But yeah, I just did it like that, and that got it to where it would press down on that. And if I had two of those, like I said, it would have worked really good. But this one was pressing it down, and when I went to go tighter, it started to break the end of it. If it would have worked if it wasn't a bad one, a defective one. But I had already gotten the snap ring in on this side, so I just loosened that clamp off, and you know, it didn't pop out, and then just moved the clamp over to here and clamped it down and got it down further. So that's in. Now we're ready to put clutches in, and if I come across anything else I feel worth showing, I'll let y'all see. This is a good book. It leaves some stuff out. Like I said, I used the an exploded diagram of the transmission as I'm going through pretty much every step of the way. When I'm ready to put something in, I go look at the diagram to make sure I'm not missing anything. And that just, I want to make sure that I don't get this thing assembled and have a piece left over, you know. Just want to make sure everything goes back in it's supposed to be in. Ran across something else I thought was worth mentioning. I was having trouble getting this seal. So you got a lip seal here on the outer. Is a ply piston for the reverse clutch assembly. I was having trouble getting this lip seal in here, and I didn't have trouble with the 350. I got them in there, but this one, it was being a pain. You got this outer one and then an inner one, and so I talked to the transmission friend, and he loaned me these. He said these used to come with rebuild kits, and they were kind of working, but well, can't really read it. You're supposed to kind of work it in there. I was having trouble getting it in there. I was like, well, if that worked, what if we cut our own? This is from the package, and it's actually a little bit thinner than this, and I made sure there was no sharp edges, rounded everything, and I put them all the way around on the outer lip seal. I had enough to go all the way around, and then the upper one, I put one in it like this and worked it around, and it went right in there. They were a little bit hard to pull back out of there once I got it seated down in there. I had to use a pair of pliers to pull these back out, but it worked. So if you're having trouble with this, take some thin plastic, real thin, make sure you have no sharp edges, and kind of I worked it in just like that, you know, started in there, then kind of worked these in there, and I just worked them all the way around, and that way it had and you might want to put some lube on here so it slides real good on them, and it went right on. So figured that was worth mentioning. I'm sure, you know, you do these several times, you get real good at it, but you know, I did that 350 transmission a couple years ago, 2 years ago maybe, and that was my first experience with these lip seals, and this is my second, and this one was much more difficult than the 350 for some reason. I don't know if the seals were just tighter or what, but definitely was a lot harder to get in there. I used feeler gauges on the 350. I couldn't get the feeler gauges to get it in there. So yeah, we're continuing on, but I figured that was something that was worth mentioning. While I'm talking, these Teflon sealing rings, Teflon? I think they're, yeah, Teflon. These are the one piece. They make 2-piece ones that everybody says use the one piece. There's ways to do these that involve what you do is take a Coke bottle for the installer, slip it around here, or cut up a Coke bottle. I'm actually probably just reuse one of these as my installation tool. Slip that over, bend it around, and slip the seal around, and then you slide it up on there, put them on, and then I'll put a link in the description what they were saying. They said wrap tinfoil around them once you get them on there, because you have to size them, and then clamp them down. What I'm going to, I borrowed the actual tool to do it. He had actually loaned out the he had already loaned out the larger one for the larger one that does these, so I will have to clamp these. Where did I put the tool? Is it still in the bag? No, put it in the box, I think. Yeah. So he doesn't use the installation tool. He just uses the sizer. So this is the sizer. Once you get the new ones on there, you slip this on there, and it sizes them. So we'll be using that, and then, like I said, I'll use, you know, plastic to wrap around there and slip them on, and we'll have to clamp this one. We can probably use the plastic. Yeah, we'll have to get a longer piece to clamp it, to wrap around. I'll probably find a piece and cut it exactly, wrap it around and clamp it, and that will get that sized just right. That's what everybody says to do. Wrap it, clamp it, and you should be good. So they swell, so I think even if it's not sized perfectly right, once you slip it on, they're gonna swell up and fill the void. Like I said, not a pro. I'm just doing this and trying to share little pieces that I find along the way to hopefully, if you're trying to do this on your own and you're not an expert, you know, you can look at the experts, how they do it. You know, there's plenty of videos out there, and then, you know, maybe some of these little tips from a non-expert will help you out. So